Hello everyone, welcome to Easy Economics. How are you all doing? How's the prep coming along? Well, here I am as the legacy continues with our 11th hour checklist. Well, the energy level is hinting me that with the help of the Almighty, tomorrow we are going to ace it, we are going to rock it, and we are going to knock our paper too. So without wasting any further time, let's proceed. All right, keep your prereqs intact tomorrow. That means arrive at your exam venue at least 30 minutes prior to the paper. Get yourself sufficient time to settle, carry with yourself a water bottle, ensure your seating arrangement is proper, carry yourself sufficient stationery, de-stress yourself, think positive. We've been drilling it. We've been doing our best for the entire year. It's just an exam tomorrow. Have faith in Allah, have faith in your abilities, and begin your paper with a small prayer. Time management will be the key tomorrow. Eco champs, 2 hours 15 minutes total will be given tomorrow. 45 minutes max to be spent in section A that carries a compulsory question. Section B, out of 4, need to solve any 3. 30 minutes max to be spent in solving each question of section B. In section A, question number 1, 8 parts will be there. Be wise, answer your questions smartly, and keep a check on the time. Handling the paper is another important aspect. Now, there are 2 options at your disposal. The first one is, as soon as you get the paper, begin with section A. The other option is, have a quick look at the paper, go to section B, pick out the question you find you are good at, put a check along it. You think you can write any relevant points, scribble them down. If you think by the time you're going to come back after solving section A, you will be forgetting it, go ahead with that. However, if you find looking at section B at that moment when you've got the paper in your hand is going to confuse you, you are going to get anxious, then go ahead with solving section A first. However, I recommend my students to pre-decide what questions they are going to attempt at section B. So by the time they come back after section A, they've already decided and they can jumpstart. All right. Now the question which still remains is, how are you going to decide which question in section B you're going to attempt at? Now you see there's a specified format for each question in section B. There are 4 parts in each question, part A and part B. Part A asks you to define, part B asks you to explain. Now both part A and part B makes up 6 marks. Part C and part D total add up to 13 marks. Pick a question based on part C and part D. For whichever questions you have a strong grip over part C and part D, choose those questions. I repeat myself, base your decision looking at part C and part D. Don't put your 13 marks at stake for the 6 marks. All right. Now, section A. Coming back to section A, that's a data response question. That's a compulsory question. You will be having 8 parts, 30 marks. The first part asks you to calculate. It's a simple calculation. Pick up the data from the data response, put in the formula, put in the details, and calculate. Remember what the question is asking you. It's asking you for the numbers. It's asking you for the percentage. Mention the units. Show your working so that if in case you derived an incorrect answer, the examiner still looks at the working and awards you marks for that. Part B, it's asking you to state, you need to pick out those relevant points from the data given and just write those points. 2 marks straight you will be awarded. Part C, it's asked you to identify, again, you're going to pick and identify those 2 relevant details from the text given. If in part C, it asks you to explain any one advantage, so pick any one advantage out there and build upon that advantage. That will yield you full 2 marks. Part D, again, it's asking you to explain 2 ways. So for each way, for each relevant, for example, if it's an advantage or it's a benefit, for each benefit, identification would yield you 1 mark, building upon it would give you the another mark. Then identifying the second point and then building upon that second point would yield you the remaining 2 marks. This is how those 4 marks will be awarded. So just don't assume that you just identified and written them down, would yield you 4 marks. No, you need to build upon that. Part E would be asking you to draw a demand and a supply diagram. Be crystal clear in your labeling, the vertical axis, the horizontal axis, what will come in the horizontal axis, what will come in the vertical axis. If it's a shift towards the right. If it's a shift towards the left, you're going to shift the demand curve, or it's a shift of the supply curve. Now it's for 4 marks. If it's for 4 marks and they're just asking you to draw the demand and the supply diagram, you need not to put in a paragraph explaining the diagram. Part F asks you to analyze how you go about analyzing question of data response. I'm going to insert a link at the end of this tutorial so that you have a fair idea how we've been attempting this question, this part in data response, because analyzing in section A is different to analyzing responses of section B. So have a look at that, and then it will just be a good reminder for you. Brush it up. Part G and Part H, both are going to be discuss questions, 6 marks each, 3 paragraphs. You're going to develop for attempting these 2 parts, one for going with the statement present in the question, one for against it, and finally the last paragraph will have to have a strong evaluation. Make sure that you have answered and met all the 3 assessment objectives when it comes to answering discussed questions to produce a high level response. Remember, we are going to go for meeting that third tier, 6 to 8 marks. So it's a 6 marks, so then again the highest tier to go for 6 marks. Section B, again, it has a specified format. Part A will be asking you to define. Now, it could either be to only define, or it could either go for defining with an example. It's going to be of 2 marks in any case. If it's asking you to just define, so there has to have 2 parts in your definition. There must be having 2 elements in your definition to score you 2 marks for that. If it's coming with an example, so 1 mark will be for the definition and 1 mark will be for the example. In certain situations, students come up to me and they say that we weren't able to recall the precise definition. So yes, in that case, you can go around explaining, but then please don't ramble over and don't go beyond an explanation of 2 lines. Part B will be asking you to explain. Again, it will be 4 marks. Explain, for instance, if it says 2 types or 2 reasons. Again, for each reason or each type you identified, for each reason, 1 mark, building upon that reason is going to yield another mark. For the second reason identified, 3rd mark, and building upon that would give you full 4 marks. For instance, if it was explaining 2 reasons why the supply of, let's say, bananas was decreasing. So you need to present in logical explanations. Give 2 reasons. For example, it could be because of a bad weather. So what would happen? It would decrease the crop. It would decrease the yield of the crop. Just identify the second reason. If what you say, maybe it was because of a rise in the cost of production. So what would happen? Example, higher wages to farm workers would make it more expensive to produce the product. You've done that, 4 marks awarded. Now comes around analyze. Now analyzing in this question, section B, 6 marks. What are you going to do? You are going to produce in a coherent analysis. What you're going to do for 6 marks, at least go for 3 factors. 3 factors you're going to analyze. For instance, if it says analyze the factors which lead to an MNC to produce in a particular country. So the coherent analysis which you might produce could be size of the market. You can identify one reason. You can say cost of the based on cost of production. The third could be availability of raw materials. Now you once identified all these 3 pointers, you need to present a coherent analysis on these 3 pointers. For instance, for size of the market, you would say, yes, if the demand for the products produced is high in the country, the MNC would be attracted to go for investing in that country. If the cost of production is relatively lower, obviously MNCs are enticed. It will attract a lot of multinationals in that case, if there's a low cost of raw material or the wages are lower. Availability of raw materials would then again be another important aspect to look at. For example, availability of certain raw materials. They will only be available in certain number of countries, for example, or if only certain number of countries allow for that. For example, in this case, it could be copper. All right, so just an example. This is how you will go around answering analyze question in section B. Again, discuss, follow the same format like we did in section A, 3 paragraphs, 1 for each side. Develop a sound reasoning a two-sided approach with clear and in-depth analysis. You need to produce a level tier response, a high-level response, go for the 6 and the 8 marks band, and make sure you've answered all assessment objectives. All right, tomorrow we are not only going to be writing answers, we are going to produce high-level response. Now, giving high-level response means we are going to pay attention to the command words. It's just asking me to identify or state. You just need to put in, list it down. It's asking me for an explanation. It's asking me to define. The question is asking me to analyze or discuss. Make sure you read the question properly and just don't go around answering the question like that. Use economic terms, just like geography has its own language, economics has its own proper language. So tomorrow, students, we've been doing it throughout the year. Tomorrow, it's the time you need to prove. Don't just write simple words, simple English language. Produce economic terminologies. Write appreciation of the currency, depreciation of the currency, boosting the productive potential of the economy. Make use of those key terms to distinguish how good you are at attempting your paper. To score high, you need to do that. Write according to the marks. If it's a 4-mark question that's just asking you to produce a demand and a supply diagram, you need not to write a paragraph. However, the question says, with the help of a demand and a supply diagram. Yes, now you need to draw demand and a supply diagram, and you now need to produce a paragraph explaining what has happened in the demand and the supply diagram. In this case, it would be a 6-mark. 4 marks would go for appropriate drawing of the demand and supply diagram, and 2 marks for an explanation that follows the construction of the demand and the supply diagram. Mind mapping is extremely important. Structure your answers well before writing it. Ensure your formatting is being followed if it's an analyze and a discuss question. And remember to show units, show proper calculation, show proper working if it's a calculation question. Draw well-labeled diagram to score full 4 marks because it's a rewarding part. I don't want you to lose your marks in this case. Don't go around beating the bush, producing unnecessary explanations. Present a coherent analysis, logical explanations, develop those links, develop those connections, draw those relationships. If it's a data response question, look at the tables thoroughly, identify the key relationship present in the variables. There could be either a negative relationship or a positive relationship. Figure that out, reduce that out. If it's an analyzed question in section A, there must have been an anomaly in that. Figure that out, figure the exception, look for this cause and effect relationships, and score high. Make sure you're meeting the assessment objectives while you're writing the answer. And I'm definitely 100% sure that we are going to all ace it tomorrow. Give your best shot. It's a 70% weightage paper 2. Paper 2 carries a 70% weightage. Give it your best. I know knowing is not enough. Apply it well. Being willing is not enough. You must do it well. My prayers are with you all tomorrow. Wishing you all the best. Let me know how did it go. All the best. Let's rock it.